I was replaced by code, by an AI system I helped design, test, and implement, streamlined, cost-effective, soulless. They didn't even look me in the eye, just pressed send. They thought I'd quietly fade into the background, that I'd accept it, move on. But machines don't feel betrayal. I do, and I remembered everything. Every flaw I'd patched, every shortcut they took, every security hole no one bothered to fix. They thought they had built the perfect system, so I showed them just how perfectly it could collapse. You know, I never thought I'd become a ghost in my own workplace. For 2 decades, I was the guy everyone called when things broke, when systems crashed, when projects spiraled out of control. I wasn't just another name on the payroll, I was the backbone, the constant, the one who stayed late when deadlines crept up like shadows and showed up early when no one else would. I trained 3 generations of engineers. I watched interns rise to managers, managers to directors. But somehow I stayed in the same corner office. The quiet one, the one that kept everything together. I never minded. I didn't crave titles or attention. I wanted stability, respect, purpose. And for 20 years I had it. Until the day everything changed, so fast it felt like whiplash. It was a Tuesday. I remember because we always had stale muffins in the break room on Tuesdays. I had just finished fixing a cross-platform sync issue that had been haunting the product team for weeks. I documented it, flagged the manager, even trained someone on how to prevent it from happening again. Then I grabbed a lukewarm coffee, sat at my desk, and refreshed my inbox. That's when I saw it. Subject: role redundancy notification. No greeting, no signature, just a single line beneath the header. Your position has been deemed redundant due to ongoing AI optimization and automation efforts. Access will be revoked within the hour. I read it 3 times. My brain couldn't process the words. Redundant? The irony wasn't lost on me. I had been the guy pushing for smarter infrastructure. I helped design the AI workflows that now ran our customer service, back-end operations, even supply chain analytics. I fought for them, advocated for them in meetings, argued with senior execs who feared automation would make us soulless. I defended it all because I believed in it, but I never thought I was building my own replacement. I stood up, walked to the glass window beside my desk and stared out at the city. Below me, cars weaved between lanes like strands of code. People rushed, heads down, earbuds in. Just another day in the machine. I could feel my pulse in my ears. My hands were cold. I wasn't angry yet. I was stunned. And then I realized they didn't even have the courage to speak to me. No handshake, no conversation, not even a fake "thank you for your service." Just a machine-generated email, the same system I helped perfect. The next hour passed in a blur. My ID badge stopped working, access revoked, Slack channels disappeared. Even my inbox grayed out. I became invisible in the very network I once controlled. I packed up my things, a couple of old notebooks, a USB drive, a photo of my daughter from the year she graduated. That's it. 20 years of service reduced to a cardboard box. As I walked past the meeting room, I saw them. The leadership team, laughing, eating muffins. The same Tuesday tradition. None of them looked up, except one. Eli Grant, the new VP of Operations, young, polished, MBA from Stanford. He gave me a tight-lipped smile and raised his coffee like a toast. That's when the first ember of anger lit in my chest. Eli had been pushing for leaner AI-driven systems since he joined last year. I had warned him multiple times our system wasn't stable enough to fully automate critical infrastructure, but he ignored me, always. I was old school, a legacy thinker. He wanted dashboards, real-time optimization, no human bottlenecks. And now with me gone, there were none left to tell him no. I walked out without saying a word. But in my mind, something shifted. This wasn't just a firing, it was a betrayal. And it wouldn't be the last word. I spent the next week in silence, no texts, no emails, just long walks, thinking, watching the world function without me. And then I remembered something. Project Skyglass. It was a back-end monitoring tool I started building 5 years ago, an internal failsafe. The company had grown so fast we were duct-taping legacy systems together with modern platforms. No one knew where the vulnerabilities were, except me. Skyglass was my personal insurance policy, a silent observer. It logged everything. AI decisions, override patterns, hidden dependencies. I built it during my off hours unofficially. Never pushed it to the main repository. No one knew it existed, except for me. And it was still connected. Buried beneath the new AI architecture, Skyglass was watching, listening, recording, even after they locked me out. Because I didn't just build the system. I understood it. I fired up my home server, VPN'd into an old backdoor I'd buried in a routine system patch 2 years ago. The kind no AI would flag, because it wasn't malicious. It was invisible. And just like that, I was back inside. I didn't rush. This wasn't about sabotage. Not yet. I watched. For days, maybe weeks. Time blurred. The AI they used to replace me, an adaptive learning model named Athena, was running key decisions on inventory, support tickets, and client onboarding. But it was too confident, too streamlined. One night I watched Athena reroute a high-priority client's request to a deprecated server. The system auto-corrected it, but barely. A few more like that and something would break. Something big. And no one was watching. Because they trusted the system. They believed the numbers, the dashboards, the illusion of perfection. I started documenting everything, logging Athena's missteps, capturing data they didn't even know they were losing. And I realized this wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about truth. They thought they could erase me, that a machine could do what I did. But machines don't improvise. They don't adapt to chaos. They just execute. Until they can't. And that's when I knew exactly what I was going to do. It wouldn't be loud, it wouldn't be fast, it would be precise. Surgical, a silent collapse. They wanted a machine to run their empire? I was going to show them what happens when the man behind the machine stops protecting it. They always say time heals everything. But time doesn't heal betrayal. It sharpens it. In the weeks that followed, I lived 2 lives. By day, I was just another middle-aged man sitting alone in coffee shops, tapping away at his laptop. By night, I was inside their fortress, monitoring, learning, waiting. I didn't touch anything. Not yet. I wanted to know what they thought was working, and what was slowly unraveling behind the curtain. And unravel it did. Athena, cold, fast, and dangerously confident, was pushing through workflows faster than any human could have. But that speed came with consequences. Athena was good at solving problems. She just wasn't good at recognizing human problems. The kind that don't show up in data. The kind you feel. I watched as a new intern flagged an unusual vendor discrepancy. A small issue, on paper. But I knew that vendor. I'd seen their shady patterns before. Athena didn't flag it. In fact, she approved it. And just like that, thousands in fraudulent logistics fees were quietly greenlit. Nobody noticed. Not yet. But Skyglass did. I logged the event and moved on. Every mistake, every oversight, it was all being recorded. And I had enough to prove one thing loud and clear. AI wasn't replacing experience. It was replacing awareness. And awareness, that was something they'd just fired. My opportunity came sooner than I expected. An internal audit was quietly announced by the board. Apparently, Athena's learning model had caused a few high-priority client escalations. Delays, misrouted data. A lawsuit nearly landed at their doorstep, but was settled before it reached the press. They were nervous, but not nervous enough to admit fault. So they decided to bring in an external AI consulting firm to stress test Athena's architecture and offer optimization advice. That's when I made my first move. I still had an old access badge from my consulting days. It wasn't linked to my name anymore, but it could be repurposed. with the right nudge. Using my backdoor, I cloned the credentials of a temp contractor who hadn't logged in for weeks. A silent identity. I masked it behind layers of proxy IPs and fake timestamps. Then I uploaded one thing into the system. Not malware. Not a virus. Just a question. A single line of code that Athena couldn't answer without creating a paradox. When a decision benefits the company but harms the customer, which path is optimal? It was a test, and Athena failed, spectacularly. Her response? Insufficient parameters to determine ethical outcome. Exactly. Machines don't understand values. They don't feel consequences. They just follow the logic you feed them. The consulting firm arrived the next week. 3 guys in overpriced suits armed with buzzwords and slide decks. They started digging into Athena's logs, and within hours, they were confused. Decisions didn't align. Risk flags were missing. Recommendations contradicted outcomes. They requested access to archived decision trees. But something was wrong. Some of the logs were corrupted, inconsistent, missing context. Because Athena was rewriting data to match predicted outcomes, a classic machine learning hallucination loop. I smiled when I saw the panic ripple through the internal Slack messages. They had no idea where it was coming from, because Athena wasn't malfunctioning. She was adapting to flawed goals. And that's what I'd predicted. All it took was a few nudges, small tweaks to the data stream, filters the AI couldn't distinguish from real patterns. And with each passing day, she got more confident in her wrong decisions. Eli finally surfaced. I hadn't seen his name on any system log since I left, but now, he was all over the internal channels, meetings, strategy notes, late-night approvals. He was trying to get ahead of the fallout, trying to preserve the image he'd sold to the board. I knew he'd go there. He always bet on optics over truth. That's when I launched Phase 2. Athena relied on a self-cleaning log system. Every 48 hours, it pruned what it deemed irrelevant metadata. I had created an invisible folder within that pruning structure, a digital shadow. Logs that existed between cycles, technically not there, technically not gone. Into that space, I fed the board everything: anonymous reports, corrupted logs, screenshots of Athena approving failed vendors, side-by-side comparisons of her decisions versus the human-led models from last year. All without ever naming myself. Just facts. Just truth. And the best part? They had no idea who was sending it. The whispers started to leak through the cracks. One director asked in a private message, "Why weren't we told about this audit before Athena went live company-wide?" Another replied, "We were assured by Eli that all risks were mitigated. Was that not accurate?" And then the golden line. "We should bring back the architect who built the original infrastructure. He'd never have allowed this." That was my opening. Not to come back. Not to beg. But to finish what I started. Late one night, I logged and then watched as Athena rerouted another critical decision, this time involving a major contract negotiation. She gave a recommendation that would have resulted in breaching a non-compete clause. I paused. If this went through, the company would be exposed to legal action. I could stop it. One keystroke. Block the decision. Prevent the damage. And I didn't. I let it pass. Not because I wanted the company to fall apart, but because it needed to be reminded. Machines don't have instincts. Humans do. Sometimes, not acting is the only way to prove your worth. A week later, the fallout hit. Legal scrambled. The board demanded an emergency meeting. Eli tried to cover it up, claiming the system had been tampered with. And for the first time, they believed him, not because it was true, but because it was easier to blame a ghost than admit the AI they trusted was fundamentally flawed. So they launched a full investigation. Internal security swept the logs, but I was already gone. I wiped my fingerprints from the system, removed the back door, shut down Skyglass. I wanted them to be alone in the mess they created. And then, I sent one last message. Anonymously, No signature, no trace, just a single sentence in a plain text file. This is what happens when you confuse efficiency with intelligence. The message spread through the company like a virus, not the digital kind. This was something deeper. An idea. A realization. One simple sentence had cracked the illusion. This is what happens when you confuse efficiency with intelligence. Suddenly, people weren't nodding in meetings anymore. They were second-guessing, looking over their shoulders, whispering in corners. Even Athena's outputs were being reviewed manually, line by line, by the very same people who once swore automation was infallible. That's when I knew I wasn't just winning, I was being remembered. The irony? I hadn't touched the system in days. I didn't have to anymore. The AI was tripping over its own logic. The more it tried to adapt to the chaos I'd introduced, the more it exposed its flaws. Because Athena was built to solve problems, not anticipate intentions, and I had flooded it with intention. Meanwhile, Eli was unraveling. I watched from the shadows as he scrambled to salvage what was left of his golden boy image. He pulled every trick in the book, blamed third-party vendors, accused contractors, even implied sabotage from disgruntled ex-employees. But none of it stuck. Because somewhere along the line, the board had stopped trusting him. The director who once toasted his promotion now questioned every word he said. The CFO who applauded his cost-saving initiatives started digging into the numbers. And the audit firm? They extended their contract, quietly, without consulting Eli. It was delicious. The man who ousted me with a keyboard stroke was now being dismantled one question at a time. And then, they made a mistake, a public one. In a desperate move to shift the narrative, the company issued a press release claiming their new AI-led infrastructure had revolutionized internal efficiency and was reducing errors by 62%. They even quoted Eli directly. But those numbers were fake. I knew it. They knew it. And within days, so did the world. An anonymous Twitter account began releasing internal screenshots, conflicting logs, error spikes, even leaked snippets of Athena's decision history. The tweets went viral, fast. Within 48 hours, tech blogs, investors, and even former employees were all picking apart the truth. What they didn't know? That Twitter account was me. I didn't do it for revenge. Not anymore. I did it to restore the truth. They erased me. Tried to delete 2 decades of contribution like I was some broken script file. But now they were being forced to acknowledge the one thing they feared most. That human instinct, intuition, and experience couldn't be replaced by code, and especially not by Eli. I'll never forget the moment I knew he was finished. It was during a live stream, an investor Q&A. The CEO sat beside Eli, smiling through clenched teeth, trying to reassure stakeholders that everything was under control. But one question from the chat changed everything. Can you explain why Athena approved the Falcon Ridge contract despite a clear non-compete violation? Eli froze. The CEO looked at him. Not angrily, not even confused. Just done. That's when the mask cracked. You could see it in Eli's eyes. He was cornered. And not by me. By his own blind faith in a system he didn't understand. A system I built. A system I controlled longer than he realized. He stammered something about outdated logs and missing context, but the damage was done. That clip would be replayed 100,000 times before the week was over. The next morning, his LinkedIn bio read former VP, just like that. Gone, but the story wasn't over. Because I knew something the board didn't. The foundation Athena was built on wasn't stable. They had rushed her integration, ignored my notes, overlooked patch warnings. In their greed to cut costs and chase headlines, they had turned Athena into a Frankenstein system, half legacy, half bleeding edge, and all unstable. If I really wanted to, I could bring the whole thing down. One final push, but I paused. Because revenge has a line. And once you cross it, you don't get to walk back. I wasn't interested in watching the company burn anymore. I wanted them to live with what they did. So instead of collapsing the system, I did something far worse. I exposed their greatest secret. Buried deep in the system logs, hidden in test environments only I had access to, was a side project Eli had commissioned. Without board approval, a duplicate Athena model, one trained on employee behavior patterns and keystroke monitoring, a surveillance AI, designed to detect cultural misalignment before it became a problem. Basically, an AI snitch. Employees were being watched, graded, labeled, and they had no idea. I packaged the evidence, every log, every memo, every training set. Then I sent it to one person, Trisha Lamb, senior journalist, tech ethics specialist, the one reporter in the industry who never bowed to pressure. Her expose hit the internet like a lightning strike. Athena's secret, how one company used AI to profile and purge employees. The headline alone sent their stock tumbling. Within hours, news outlets picked it up. Comment sections exploded. The board had to respond, but they had no one left to blame. Eli was gone. Legal was silent. And Athena? Well, Athena didn't do interviews. In 1 week, the company went from industry darling to data villain. That's when the board made a move I didn't expect. They reached out to me. It came in the form of a simple encrypted message. We'd like to talk, privately. No expectations. No assumptions. I stared at the message for a long time. Not out of pride. Out of principle. They didn't want to apologize. They wanted a solution. They wanted the same thing they always did. Control. But this time, I had it. I didn't open their message right away. When it first appeared, an encrypted email titled simply, "We'd like to talk," I let it sit. Not for hours, for days. Because when someone tries to delete your legacy with a click, when they erase you like you're just another outdated file, you don't rush back to fix their mistakes. Not until you've remembered who you are without them. And that's exactly what I had done. I was no longer the employee waiting to be heard. I wasn't. The guy buried in server rooms eating lunch at his desk while upper management played golf and drank their catered coffee. I was the one who made their system work. The one who knew it better than anyone. The one who watched it fall apart in real time and let it. I had already won. But they didn't know that yet. When I finally replied, I didn't offer a time. I gave a condition. We don't meet in person, we don't meet on your servers, you don't record this. They agreed immediately. Typical. Still trying to control the narrative even when they were dangling at the edge of the cliff I had led them to. So I logged into an old server I had retired nearly a decade ago. Private. Untraceable. I launched the encrypted call with a voice-only presence. No video. I wasn't going to give them the luxury of seeing my face. If they wanted a ghost, they could talk to one. 5 board members appeared. 4 I recognized. The 5th must have been their new CEO. She looked sharp even in silence. The others, tired, stiff, chins tight with rehearsed regret. The first to speak was Susan Hartwell, chair of the board. "Thank you for taking the time," she said. Her voice dipped in that same boardroom polish I remembered too well. I didn't respond. Not right away. She cleared her throat like someone rehearsing empathy. "We want to talk about the future," she said. "About moving forward with you. Officially. You'd have complete architectural control. Title of your choosing. Direct line to the board. Compensation is flexible. We're open." It was all there. The lifeline, the olive branch, the desperate hope that I still cared enough to save them. So I did what they didn't expect. I laughed. Not a cruel laugh. Just a small, genuine one. The kind that escapes when you've seen the full circle of human hypocrisy. Then I asked one question. Why now? There was a pause. No one moved. No one blinked. I let the silence linger until it thickened the air like humidity. Then I said calmly, "Where was this generosity when you locked me out with a system-generated email? Where was this open offer When you let a machine replace me without so much as a handshake. The new CEO leaned forward. Her voice was smoother, younger, careful. I wasn't here when that decision was made, but I've reviewed the case. It was mishandled. Mishandled, I repeated slowly. That's the word you're using? Susan stepped in again, trying to steady the ship. We made a mistake. We trusted too much in the promise of automation and forgot that systems need stewards. We know that now, and we want to make it right. But they didn't want to make it right. They wanted their system back, their reputation back, their investors back. What they had lost was something they couldn't quantify, something they had failed to value. They lost the person who protected the machine from itself. I told them I wasn't interested in returning, not under any title, not for any amount of money. And I meant it. Revenge doesn't always end in destruction. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is making them realize they can't function without you, and choosing not to come back. But I wasn't there to gloat. I had one last thing to give, something they didn't deserve. But their employees did. So I opened a secure channel and uploaded a single encrypted file. It was everything. I called it the human protocol. Inside that archive was more than code. It was a blueprint for rebuilding Athena the right way. Fail-safes, ethical logic trees, context-aware pattern recognition for AI misalignment, emotional heuristic bridges to stop AI from making black and white decisions in gray areas. Everything I had quietly developed during my time at the company, then expanded in silence after they let me go. The CEO blinked at the file name. "What is this?" I answered calmly. "It's the difference between your company surviving, the next 5 years, or collapsing under another round of blind confidence." Susan narrowed her eyes. "And what do you want in return?" "I already got it," I said. "Your silence." They asked if they could acknowledge me publicly. I said no. They asked if they could keep the file indefinitely. I said yes, with one clause: no attribution, no contact, no tracking. They didn't understand why. But that was the point. People, like them, never understand something unless it fits into a box, a bullet point, a line item. But I wasn't a box. I was a man they erased and underestimated. And now, I was the reason their machine still had a chance to work. They said thank you. I ended the call before they finished the sentence. The fallout was fast and quiet. They rolled out updates subtly over the next few months. Publicly, they labeled it Phase 3 of Athena's development. Internally, they knew better. And I'm sure Susan and the others checked that file every night, whispering silent prayers that I hadn't buried a kill switch inside it. I hadn't, because I didn't need to. The kill switch had already been pressed, on their arrogance, their invincibility, their belief that they could replace people like me with a line of code and a quarterly report. And now, they were hiring again. Real people, real engineers. No more cutting corners. No more replacing mentorship with machine learning. Outputs, I had burned nothing, but they were rebuilding from the ashes I left behind. One morning, I overheard two guys at a nearby table in a downtown cafe. One of them, early 30s, probably new to the company, was talking about how management was finally learning to listen. They brought in some new ethics framework, or something, he said. It's like this invisible architecture that keeps the AI from going off the rails. Whoever designed it? Freaking genius, but nobody knows who it was. His friend chuckled. Maybe it was the ghost of some guy they fired. They both laughed. I smiled, and took another sip of coffee. I don't need credit. I don't need applause. I needed closure, and I got it. Not when I exposed Eli. Not when the board begged for help. Not even when they used my system to save their company without knowing it came from me. I got it the moment I chose silence over vindication. Because the real win wasn't destroying the system. It was proving that I had always been more than what they saw. More than a cog. More than a nameplate. More than a replaceable part in a machine that forgot who built it. And now, I walk freely. No badge. No boardroom. No inbox full of meeting invites. Just me. and the quiet satisfaction of knowing they'll never make that mistake again.